So today what we're going to talk about is what I don't like about Microtech. So overall, I really do like their knives. They're impeccable quality. They're really good. They look great. I had one of these, an Ultratech that was a burnt orange handle, Tonto blade. I liked it, but I ended up getting rid of it. The blade itself, just that their Tonto blade is kind of weird. It was like super long and pointy, and while certainly good for piercing something, it wasn't a good slicer, and I didn't feel like it was just really a practical knife. So I ended up getting rid of that a while ago, and then recently got another Ultratech with the drop point blade, and it's a great slicer, just about as pointy, so still a good piercer. But this is actually a much better knife to use. What can you say about Microtech? This one was made in November of 2019. It's got the new 204P stainless steel blades, USA made. Very cool knife. Here's what I don't like about it. This. While that looks pretty, this is another one of those things of like form over function. I'm not sure if maybe they're thinking, well, if your hands were slippery or you had oil, but the CNC machining on this is so aggressive, it really chews the shit out of your thumb. And so, one of the reasons we get these things, we like them, but also, you sit there kind of flicking it, playing with it on the couch while you're watching TV or whatever. After like 5 or 6 times, this actually starts to hurt your thumb. So when I compare it to some of the other types of actuators out there, buttons or sliders, whatever you want to call it, I think it's an inferior design. I think I do it because it's a look, and people who don't know Microtechs, like they know that, that's a Microtech design. But then when I look at the shape of something like the Guardian Tactical, where it's kind of ramped there, where instead of, the problem with this is because of this slope here, and because it's a small handle, to keep the handle from moving in your hand, you have to kind of grip it hard. And to get the traction there, your thumb wants to slide off of it because it's such a nice, smooth, gradual slope. So what's actually gripping your finger is the bite of those ridges, which forces you to kind of push into them. And when you do that, it chews up your thumb. It's just very abrasive. As opposed to that, see how there's that like sharp ramp where your thumb kind of hits that and stops, and the Hogue does it very similarly. Much easier to do that. The nubbins here are more rounded. It's got good jimping on there. Your thumb grips it, but it just doesn't chew up your thumb the way that one does. Same thing with the Vespas, which are the kind of the Chinese. It's not an exact copy, but it's a fairly good copy of the Microtech Combat Trudones. They have a different kind of jimping there, and see the angle. See how this angle is just very, very gradual, and see how that it's a little taller, and it's a little more this way. And your thumb just naturally sits there, and you don't have to put a lot of pressure into the grooves to get it to have traction. It's really nice. Same thing here. Now this is more gradual, and so here's an example of, this is a copy of the Cypher from Microtech, and so it's not any taller than that. The angle is about the same. It does have different machining, but it's just not as abrasive. You can sit there and flick that, and your thumb grips it fine, and not an issue. Heretic, same. Theirs is a little bit different. Theirs is on the side, and so it's also gradual, but it's just, there's more rounding done here. This is just very sharp. I think when they did that, I think they should have maybe softened it a little bit. I don't know if this is titanium or aluminum, and I tried doing this on a Cobra Tech that had really sharp jimping. And I tried to take like a Dremel wheel with like just a steel wire bristle, just to kind of soften it, and it actually chewed into the aluminum. So I don't want to necessarily do that here. I'm sure I could always call them and get another one and replace that. But I'm not sure what that metal is. I'm sure to keep the weight down, it's probably aluminum or something. But these other ones, very same. They're just they all have to do the same thing, but there's just something different about the Microtech. The Heretic, you can sit there and do that all day. It doesn't chew up your thumb. This one's the most comfortable. I mean, the jimping is wide and it's deep, so it doesn't have to be sharp. I think when you look at this, the Combat Trudon copy, or the Cypher, when you look at that, it's got the jimping, but notice here it's like all wavy and all this, and so the more design you want to pack into that little area, the sharper you can't have like wide and deep if you're going to have that much going on there. Everything gets kind of smaller, and as a result kind of gets sharper and just gets more and more abrasive. So the knife is fantastic. Ultratech is probably like the best all around, you know, if you want an OTF small pocket knife, something that's very light, sits in your pocket, you barely notice the weight, it's not there. You know, you just need a basic knife for cutting things, rope, twist tie, you know, like a zip ties or anything like that, just a basic cutting tool. Ultratech is really hard to beat. These ones are cool, but that's a big blade. I mean, that's a 4-inch blade. It's very light because it's thin. It's all CNC machined aluminum, titanium on some of the parts here. You know, brilliant little knife. The Combat Trudon, lighter than it looks like for its size, and this is just a gorgeous knife. Love the action. This thing is worth every penny of the $150 I spent for it. But again, that's a big knife. That's almost like a fighting knife, you know, if you're going to use that as a weapon. This, compared to the Heretic, is it's almost double the weight. It has a much larger blade. You know, maybe not length, but just, I mean, that seems to me like a bit of a heavier dutier blade. It's much taller. I would say, as far as size and discreteness, it's probably more in line with the Guardian Tactical. Guardian Tactical is a little shorter, but it's also a little wider this way, so it's probably a toss-up which one you prefer. Weight-wise, probably identical. I mean, to me that feels like they're within 1/4 of an ounce of each other. So I'm going to get one of the bigger versions of this, because the problem with this one, I hate that this is so abrasive. What I don't like about this is that while the thumb stud is good, this coating is so slick, which is nice because it doesn't snag in your pocket. It's very sleek, but you have to kind of really grip it, because just the force of doing that, this thing wants to slide out of your hand because there's not a lot of jimping. See how this has got jimping here? That kind of stays in your hand. This just sort of has some gentle contours, and with that really slick anodized coating, you have to kind of pinch it when you're pushing this up. So it's not uncomfortable the way this is, but it's still just not optimal. I feel like some of these other designs, I guess maybe that's because it's larger, this having it on the side, your hand is automatically just kind of formed to the jimping. So nothing's perfect, that's for sure. I'm going to try the Guardian Tactical Recon 040, which is the larger version of this, and I'll see if that fits a little bit better. I was hoping to go to the Blade Show, which is next month, and that's been moved to August because of the whole coronavirus thing. So I'll get to play with one there, and if I like it, I'll pick it up. But if anybody at Microtech is watching, and you're probably not, because I'm just some schmuck on the internet and I don't have a shit ton of followers, but if anyone does know anybody at Microtech, you know, redesigning this button, there's a way to have it be the signature Microtech and have it be cool, but functional and just not that abrasive. It just doesn't need to be. I've got all these knives and a ton of others that are just as effective. I've done it where I put my hand in the water in the sink and got it wet, and they work just as fine. But this thing just really chews up your thumb. That's the only downside of this. Other than that, Microtech is this is just a brilliant knife. This one, I like all my knives, and I'll alternate between, I love this Cypher. That's just a really cool blade and an amazing slicer. But this is the one I carry the most, because it's big enough. I can just get my hand in it. It does have the glass breaker. It's got a great pocket clip. It's just a really cool blade. And as far as slicing and general work, I mean, it's ideal. That's the perfect blade shape. So anyway, please fix this.